Everyone for joining us. Massive thank you for Chris for being with us, and a massive apology for the mix-up there with the technology. I'm just going to shoot through a bit of background and the story behind this event. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Barry Cranford. I'm one of the organisers of the London CTOs and also run a tech recruitment company called RecWorks. So we've been on a mission at RecWorks for the last 12 years to find ways that recruitment can be used as a force for good in the tech industry, beyond just getting people jobs. And that's specifically around learning, communities, mentoring, career development, that kind of thing. So we do loads of stuff around bringing people together in those spaces. One of the things we started organising about 10 years ago was the London CTOs. So we've spent the last 10 years organising events, again, making mentor introductions and doing all sorts of different things there. It's all powered by revenue from recruitment. So if anyone's hiring or anyone's thinking about hiring, then remember the name and hook me up afterwards on LinkedIn. Anyway, on to today. So today happened because part of what we do within the CTO groups is organize an aspiring CTOs group. And that is all about people that would like to one day step into the role of being a CTO, but don't know entirely what it involves, don't know entirely what they should, how to get into it. And someone was given some advice of work on your personal brand. And so it's one of these things, personal branding is one of these things that comes up all the time. So that he asked me and I was like, I don't really know. And it just so happened that Chris had been in touch recently and his profile is ridiculous. I'll go through his bio at the moment for how well suited he was. So we had a session about 6 weeks ago, Chris, I think it was. Really good, really popular. Just a lightning pace. Chris answered loads and loads of questions. I'd say to everyone to check it out. We'll send out the last video shortly. Anyway, we had a lot of follow-up questions that came off the back of that. So we got in touch with Chris and here he is again. So I'm just going to give you his bio very quickly and then we'll go just for a quick introduction from him. So Chris, he's the #1 global LinkedIn marketing and personal branding expert. He is the CEO and founder of the world's #1 global LinkedIn marketing and personal branding firm, Black Marketing, with 1,600 LinkedIn recommendations. He's written 4 #1 best-selling books about LinkedIn. He's an official Forbes contributor on LinkedIn and an official LinkedIn Power Profile. So Chris, welcome.
Fantastic to be here again.
One of the things that I'd like to just get started with, and it was one of the highlights for me personally about the last session, and just for those people that weren't with us, I thought it'd give quite a good bit of context as to who Chris is and his relationship with LinkedIn. So Chris, could you just retell the story about when you first moved to Singapore and how LinkedIn helped you then?
Sure. I mean, basically, I exited my third business in London back in 2008, 2009. And it was either I then created another business in London or I went abroad. So I then started exploring going abroad and I looked at Hong Kong and Singapore. I used LinkedIn, my 200 connections then, what I had in 2008, 2009, to actually reach out to people in Singapore and say, hey, I'm coming to Singapore for a couple of months to see and explore opportunities. Will you meet me? And people in Singapore were very, very friendly. They are very, very friendly. They all said, yeah, let's come over, have a drink, have a coffee, have a chat. So I got over there and I got my first, my second and my third job by doing this process of networking, which enabled me to move over there in 2009. And then basically I've been there ever since, so coming up to 12 years basically. And that showed me you didn't need to actually have a job or apply for a job to actually get a job. You just had to network on LinkedIn. And those jobs on LinkedIn were regional roles across the whole of Asia Pacific, which is vast, 2/3 of the world's population. I didn't know anybody in China, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, India, but LinkedIn did. So I started using LinkedIn to find the CMO of this company or whatever. This is before it started being using for sales and social selling as it is now, before Sales Navigator, the platform I love and very passionate about, even existed. Because I figured if you use the data to find someone to fill a job, which is what it was used for at the time, just recruitment, you can use the data to find an individual, whether that's a CTO or a CMO. And so by doing that, I realized there was a niche in the marketplace, and that's that's why I created Black Marketing. So Black Marketing does this for other people. We work with CTOs, CMOs, CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, MDs, individuals, celebrities to actually manage their profile and make them a LinkedIn rockstar, because they don't have the time to do it themselves, because they're too busy doing what they should be paid to do, which is the CTO of their particular company or the CMO of their company. And LinkedIn's just that, oh, I need to be doing this, but I haven't got time to doing it for my personal branding. Hence why we do lots of talks to try and get other people to do their own personal branding and to do things on LinkedIn which will actually help them get a job, network, and get promoted, get noticed, or just become a thought leader, or if they run their own business, you know, generate sales, generate leads as well. So it's out of a real practical basis that I used it, that I then passed the tips on to other people, and we then manage the profiles of other people to do it. Because still to this day, no one really does a service like ours across the whole world.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. I did warn you all it would all be at a lightning pace. It will be on YouTube afterwards, and so you're all well. I'll send you all a copy. You're welcome to listen to it and take notes, because I know I got a lot more out of it the second time as well. But no, that's great, and I think it's a great story there. So okay, I've got a bunch of different questions that we've had submitted from when people signed up, some follow-ups from the last time. And if anybody on the call would like to ask anything, the floor is open. So feel free to unmute your microphone and just ask, or drop a question in the chat, and I'll do my best to get it in. But so moving on to the questions then. In terms of details and best practice, so this came up a few times from the signups. What makes a good CTO profile? Can you give any general advice on what makes a good CTO?
Sure. I mean, the best CTO profile actually stands out. Obviously, it's basically the way you communicate your personal branding, the way you look in terms of the banner, the picture, the photograph, the headline. Headline's very important. You have 4 lines there to talk about yourself, describe yourself in a very positive way. It's the bio, so giving your story. Why are you a CTO? What brought you to being a CTO? Or why do you want to be a CTO? Tell your story of your history, what got you into it, what was the catalyst, who you admire. Even put a couple of quotes in there. You know, I use my granddad's quote about when he told me when I was 9 years old, it's who I know, not what I knew. And it was all about, you know, what does that mean, Granddad? I don't understand. And obviously, as I came across my career and I started meeting people and connecting and using LinkedIn, I realized it was all about who you know, not what you know, because you can connect and get jobs by who you know, not necessarily what you know. So basically, it's about using your personal brand to actually do that. And then content. Content's key. I mean, the greatest CTO who's also a CEO is Elon Musk. And it was interesting today, for example, Barry, that Elon Musk announced he closed down his PR department of Tesla because he doesn't need it. Because he does all the PR, he does all the marketing, he does all the advertising, because his personal brand is so powerful that he basically just does something and millions of people take notice on a daily basis. So his personal brand is superpowering Tesla, SpaceX, you know, the Boring Company, absolutely everything. He doesn't need PR, he doesn't need anything else. And that's the real power of a true personal brand that's a CTO, is he talks a lot about technical stuff when he tweets or he blogs or he posts or he does interviews, and it's getting his opinions across, it's getting his views across. You know, a lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him, but he's basically creating a catalyst of basically, you know, a fusion of basically people talking or sparking conversations or creating debate. And a lot of his stuff is complete crap, but he basically creates a debate based on it. I mean, he had something the other day about, it was something about the brain, and he was controlling someone's brain, and it was like, it turned out to be not true at all. It was just sparking conversation about what might happen, what could be. And that's the true thing about a CTO. Now, you don't need to be Elon Musk. I would put Elon Musk way, way up there in terms of, you know, the amount of exposure. You can be a more considered, more conservative, more thoughtful CTO on LinkedIn, with the way you come across, the way your thoughts come across, the way your interviews and your videos and your posts come across, your content comes across. But you do need to be putting yourself out there a bit. And that means at least posting once or twice a week. You know, I would say you should do it once a day. But if you haven't done it before, that's a big step. So do it once or twice a week. Get used to it. Get used to the engagement. Get used to the following. Get used to commenting and sharing and engaging with other people's posts. And then build your own confidence from there.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'm actually going to now jump to something that I was going to ask later, but since you sort of touched upon it a little bit there. this question around tone of voice, right? You brought up there, if you're not used to it, do it once, twice a week, get used to it. Now, I was looking at your profile this morning, and I'm going to read it out. It says, I love to share my uncensored, polarizing, and authentic thoughts on a variety of business topics on LinkedIn and for Forbes, where I am an official Forbes Business Council member, right? And I think that, having spoken to you for now, having looked through your LinkedIn a bunch before, that defines you perfectly as your brand. And so it's now quite easy to use that as a brand and put stuff out there, the polarizing stuff especially. But how do you find that? How do you find your tone of voice? If you're not used to and you're not necessarily comfortable in broadcasting yourself, how do you go from never saying anything on LinkedIn to starting to kind of go from maybe writing a formal blog post to just putting this sort of micro post?
Really good question. I mean, the best way to start is to basically write it down on paper before you put it on LinkedIn. So literally just go on your laptop or get on a piece of paper itself and just write out, 200 words of an actual opinion piece that you're very passionate about. If you don't know what you are passionate about, what to write about, then just look at news items. And pick out a news items, like I picked out the Elon Musk news item today. I wrote a little piece saying he doesn't need he's got a personal brand, he doesn't need a PR company. And I think this is the way forwards for many entrepreneurs, many CEOs. So it sparked a post for me, basically, because it backs up my opinions about you need a personal brand to drive your business forwards. And that's often a way of doing it. You pick a story out and say, well, I'm passionate about that and I don't agree, or I do agree. Share the story and then put a couple of 100 words, maybe even 100 words about why you disagree or why you agree, and then put it out there and then see what people think. And that's often the best way of doing it. But everyone's slightly different. You don't have to be totally polarizing. I like to polarize. That's part of my personal brand. But other people may not want to do that, maybe more want to be considered and have both sides of the opinion. Well, I think this, but one of my friends thinks this. And put both the opinions out there and then ask people what they think about it as a CTO. So you find your voice that way. But I would say rehearse it first before you put it on LinkedIn, and even show it to somebody. Show it to a couple of your peers and say, what do you think? If I put this on LinkedIn, do you think it'd be a good thing to do? Because you have to kind of use a filter. I'm used to using a filter before I put stuff out there. But a lot of people don't know what to put out there on LinkedIn. So share it with some of your peers, some of your friends, share it with your wife, your girlfriend, your husband, your boyfriend, whatever, and say, what do you think? If I put this on LinkedIn, do you think it would get good engagement? And if they basically fall over and are gassed or whatever, then obviously edit it. But if they think, yeah, that's fantastic, go for it, try it. And it's only by trying it and iterating it do you get a feeling about what your tone and voice is, and also what people react to. Because you might put something out there and nobody reacts, in which case you've got to change your tone and voice and be something different, or change the subject matter and try it. That's what I'm saying. You've got to really iterate it and change things on a regular basis.
Okay, bunch of useful information there. So one thing that I'm going to pick up on what you said is you've got to ask people, do you think this is a good thing to do? Which is obviously like great advice. Now, if I could ask you everything that I was about to post, I'd trust you. But if I asked my wife half the stuff that I was about to post, I'm sure she would say, do not post that. So how do you know, like, what does good look like and what you want to achieve here? You said one of the things you said there was, do you think it will lead to good engagement? So that's obviously one of the things that you're kind of targeting, engagement. But what else? Like, what does good look like?
I mean, ultimately, good basically is in your guts. You know, instinctively, if you write something and you think, yeah, I believe that, I can substantiate that, I've got facts to prove that, and I believe passionately about this, I'll put it out there, and it's in a business context. It's not a personal context. Don't do politics, don't do religion on LinkedIn. It doesn't work. It dies because LinkedIn doesn't allow political advertising, doesn't like political posts. Don't do that. They're the two things you should never do: politics and religion. So filter it and say, this is a business thing. It's I, as a CTO, I believe in this. This is the practice that should go forwards, and I believe this should happen, and put it out there. So if you don't want to ask someone personal, ask a peer, ask another CTO and say, what do you think about this? If I shared this, what do you think? And then you gain confidence. And everyone thinks, I'll put it out there, suddenly 1 million people are going to view it and engage and basically criticize it. It's not going to happen, because people have got a feed. I saw one of the questions come in and said, it gets lost in the feed. It does. Unless your post really engages and gets commented on by other people and liked and shared, then it really basically gets lost in the feed. So you've got to make it stand out. And that's often, if you tag somebody and say, what did you think about this? Sebastian, what did you think about this? Adam, what did you think about this? Stelios, what did you think about this? You get someone else to actually then get involved in the conversation. They will then comment on it, hopefully. And if they commented, it gets into their feeds. And then suddenly your content starts elevating and starts amplifying because other people start sharing it within their connections. And then those people then come to your profile and view you and say, oh, that's interesting. Sebastian shared this. That was really interesting. What else did Sebastian do? What else did Sebastian, what else does Adam do? And it's all about kind of getting other people involved. But you got to remember that there's a rule on LinkedIn, which is called 1-9-90, which is 1% of people on LinkedIn post, only 1% every month. So out of about 300 million active users, which is what LinkedIn has on a monthly basis, only about 1%, 3 million people post on a monthly basis, which is shocking. 9% of people like and comment. They won't post themselves, but they'll like something or they'll comment on something or they'll flick through a thing, oh, yeah, I like that, and I'll comment, but they won't post. 90% of people on LinkedIn do nothing but view. So they are obviously, when you see views and you have 10,000 views or 1,000 views, you can see this calculation is true because you do get the 1-9-90. I mean, it's like absolutely amazing. If you get more than 100 comments on a post which has 10,000 views, you're doing extremely well because most people do not want to put themselves out there. So if you put yourself out there, you automatically become a thought leader on the field because you're bothering to be part of the 1%.
It's great advice. And I think that confidence that comes with time, I think that's so true. From trying, from iterating, it's the same as writing to any kind of mailing list, I guess. You know, when you start getting the response and people start, engaging with it, then that's what leads to the confidence. And then you find, okay, great. All right. I'm going to, sorry, I went straight into that because it was interesting. I'm going to look at the chat now. So comment from Adam, I've noticed that content on LinkedIn now gets buried and killed compared to even 1 year ago. Has it changed? It seems that LinkedIn algorithms now heavily biased towards Facebook style posts, content low, argument high news posts, and I've watched posts that used to get widely read to now getting no response. Any thoughts or comments on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a misnomer to say it's a Facebook thing. It's not a Facebook thing. It's just people like people. I mean, it's always been that way. People like people. So if you post something about you and somebody else, or you have a picture of you with somebody else, it'll get views because people like people. I mean, ask yourself the question, would you rather read something about the latest Dell laptop or latest announcement from Dell about how well they're doing, or a post from Michael Dell with his wife or basically his daughter for graduation? I mean, like, what is more interesting from a human point of view? And it's obviously him with his daughter or a mentee or someone who's basically talking around the factory with a picture of him and it's authentic rather than an official company thing. Because nobody basically engages with the company, they engage with the person. So the Elon Musk factor is reticent with people like Bill Gates or people like when he posts, he gets 1 million views and lots of engagement. Michael Dell, when he posts, Michael Dell actually gets more engagement on his page with 1.5 million followers than Dell does with 3 million followers. Because people follow people, they don't follow basically companies. I mean, Bill Gates has 25 million followers, about to be 30 million followers actually, be the first person up to 30 million. And Microsoft only have 11 million followers. And you look at the Microsoft page, and if Satya Nadella does not comment on something or is not part of the story, literally it's single digit likes and they've got 11 million followers. Because it's boring. It's like, we have the latest Surface Pro and it's very nice and you should go and buy it now. And it's like, it's really boring. Who gives a crap? But if Satya Nadella comes on and goes, hey, we're going to let everyone work from home today. It's fantastic. And people go, wow, it's amazing. Genius. You're amazing. That's genius stuff. And no one else would have thought about that. And people like to engage with Satya Nadella because they can. It's LinkedIn. You can feel close to the CEO of one of the largest companies in the world because he's on LinkedIn.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Okay, we've had a few more from Joao. What is the best way to share knowledge? Use my personal space and add the link in LinkedIn, duplicate content, or is there a third option?
The best place is to post directly onto LinkedIn. Don't have a link. Like a lot of people use things like Medium or their own websites, and that's the way to basically kill it, because no one wants to click away from LinkedIn. Like no one wants to click away from Facebook or YouTube or other platforms. They want to stay on the platform itself. That's why you should write a little post. And yeah, you can use a little news story, for example, like I often use, The Guardian or Channel News Asia or Forbes, and people can actually click on it to what if they want to, but they don't. They actually just engage on the post. So I summarize the post with my opinion about it, and then we engage about that. So you basically don't try and drive people elsewhere because they don't want to go elsewhere, particularly not your website. No one's going to go to your website to read the blog. They'll read your blog on your LinkedIn. So basically, it's that whole adage of build it and they will come. Well, no, because LinkedIn built it so basically everyone's on LinkedIn. So why would you try and build a website and drive everyone there when no one wants to go there? Whereas they're on LinkedIn, so use LinkedIn's feed and post to post there.
Okay, just as a follow-up from that, we've just seen LinkedIn versus Twitter. How can we extract the best of both worlds? Any
I'm not
thoughts
an
on
expert
that?
on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. No one in Asia uses Twitter, so I have no idea about Twitter whatsoever. I know it's full of trolls and abuse, and obviously Mr. Trump uses it, and he got, even he got taken off this morning for writing shit about the COVID-19 situation. Even Twitter has a limit in terms of how many lies one person can actually tell, and that's the problem with Twitter for me. Whereas LinkedIn, he wouldn't even be allowed on LinkedIn to start off with. So, basically, you take your platforms and look at them in terms of where do you want to go to get abuse for anonymous trolls, and where do you want to have a proper personalized conversation. So I would advise stick to LinkedIn, but it depends on your marketplace. If your marketplace is journalists in the US, then maybe Twitter works.
Okay, great. We had a question as well from Kostav. Do you have any advice on the best ways to use LinkedIn sponsored messaging to promote content such as podcasts, white papers?
Don't. You don't need to. If you get your content right on LinkedIn, you do not need to use any sponsored posts. And more to the point, people can opt out. So I've opted out of sponsored posts and sponsored in-mail, so I never see any. So a lot of people are doing that as well. They opt out. You can also report things as well. So I constantly, if I see one, I constantly report it saying I don't want to see this, because I want to see organic content. I want to see personalized content. I want to see authentic content. And as soon as I see it says promoted or sponsored, I disregard it. And many people do the same thing. They join LinkedIn to see authentic content, not promoted content, which is why the advertising doesn't work on LinkedIn either. It's very expensive and doesn't work. If your content's good enough, it'll go viral. You'll get engagement. If you use tagging, for example, of your employees to share your content, it'll go viral just by authentic ways. You don't need to buy any amplification on LinkedIn to make other people see it. And you can also send little messages to people if you have a target list of, say, 10 people you want to influence with your white paper, and send the link to them. Send the link of your LinkedIn post to those people using LinkedIn messaging, and it's free. You don't need to pay for anything. It's free, completely free.
Great. Sue has actually had some interesting advice. Coming back to a point we were talking about a few minutes ago. Do you have any advice on posting an opinion that you firmly believe in, but does not reflect well on your employer or your boss or your colleagues or something like that?
That's a great question. I mean, basically, that's the Elon Musk way of doing it, but he owns the company. I do that, but I own the company. So it's like, if you own the company, you can get away with that shit. And if you don't care, if you offend, your peers or your employees or your investors or whatever, you can get away with it. Obviously, if you work for HSBC and you start saying, oh, this banking thing isn't going to last very long, everyone should invest in Bitcoin. Obviously, it's very career limiting. So you shouldn't say things like that. That's what I mean about the filter. You got to look at it and go, will I be in trouble for saying this? And a lot of companies, more seriously, actually have social media guidelines. And we help companies actually create these. And they do say you have a responsibility to reflect the company in a positive light on LinkedIn or on any social media, because it's not just LinkedIn, of course. And that's how people get fired, because they write stuff in a Facebook group which they think is private, which is never private, or a WhatsApp group which is private, which again is never private. And then somebody outs them, screen grabs it, shares it to the CEO or whatever, and then you get fired because it's in your contract. You're bringing basically your company into disrepute by what you do. So you have to think through what you want to do. And that's why LinkedIn's better, but it also makes people more reticent about what to post. If you want to criticize the industry or the company you're working for, obviously you're shooting yourself in the foot, unless you obviously own the company or you're about to leave, in which case you don't care.
Great, thank you. Okay, Azam had quite an interesting post as well here. I get quite a high number of views on many of my posts, 2,000 to 3,000, but not so many comments. What else can I do to create more engagement?
So it's an interesting question, that. And that happens a lot of company posts. They get lots of views and likes, but no comments. And the reason for that is that company employees feel obliged to like something because it's on the company page. And it may be that your content's interesting, but not that interesting to make somebody actually comment. Hence why the polarizing thing comes in. If you polarize and have an opinion, then you get somebody to react. If you don't basically get an opinion, put an opinion in there, and it's relatively bland, then people go, oh, that's interesting, and move on. You haven't captured their attention enough. You haven't basically engaged them enough. You haven't invoked them or provoked them enough to actually then make them comment. So try asking a question. Try basically pushing the boundaries. Try, generating a lead. Try tagging someone you know will comment. And that might get other people to start commenting as well. So if I tagged Barry, for example, it's, hey, Barry, what do you think about this? Barry gets a notification. And then Barry can then enter and then comment on it. and then somebody else might comment as well. So, but it all depends on your content. What kind of content do you have? And is it, you know, with all due respect, is it really boring and kind of factual and, you know, technical, or is it provocative?
I have to say, actually, that although we've done so many events in the past and we generally put a thank you LinkedIn message out, we almost never got any comments, maybe one, same as what Aslam was saying. But then we did this event, the last event with Chris, and you want to see the post. It must have had, I don't know, 30 comments, something like that, because Chris, you tagged a lot of people, you wrote things, people wrote back, you wrote to them, and then that encouraged more people. And it was like,
yep,
we've been doing this for how long? We've never been able to do this. And it was so simple, you know, when you know what you're doing. So it's kind of real, you know, proof of this kind of thing. A few things though, asking a question, right? So I'm speaking personally now. I could see myself doing this and saying, hey, this is what I think about this. What do you all think? And then literally, if nobody else wrote anything, I just be like, oh God, like I look like a fool because I've sort of said, what does everyone think? And everyone's like, we don't care. That's the kind of an internal concern I would have with that. Like,
totally. Well, that's
is
all
asking
about
a question,
learning.
does it work?
Yeah, it does sometimes, yes, but you have to know the question to ask.
Right.
And you have to be topical. Sometimes I feel you have to be topical. So if you basically pick a topical question and a topical time to do it, then you might provoke it. And it also depends, have other people asked that same question? Have they covered it? Because if they've all covered it, then basically no one else is going to comment on yours because they commented on all the other people's posts that do out the same thing. And that's about picking original content. I mean, I use Google Alerts quite a lot to pick original content. So one of my Google Alerts is Elon Musk. And so every single day I get 20 stories about Elon Musk, and I pick one or pick two out that I think is interesting and about personal branding or about content marketing, and I share. But I also have Google Alerts for Metallica and LinkedIn and personal branding and Singapore and Newcastle United and other things like this, and my passions, and I share them. But I pick out the stories, and it's all free because Google Alerts is free, but it gives me a stream of content and I get it first. And I get other people's blogs and I get reports and I get other people's opinions, which I can share. So it's not just the mainstream news. Otherwise, you might get copying the same thing that somebody else has already copied, in which case, if everyone's asking the same question, then it depends on how the relationship is with that particular person. And so it's all about the originality of your question and your post, Barry.
Okay, and I think that's a really good idea. I know a lot of people here, especially the CTOs at the more senior end, looking to go into interim or fractional work and thinking about that thought leadership piece. I remember you said last time about using Google Alerts around that thought leadership, so you can kind of get the alerts and then, you know, become known as that person that's always talking about X. Yeah. Okay. A few more comments have come in then. Korstav, again, this was one of the things I wanted to cover. Tell us about the best ways to use photos and videos on LinkedIn, and do they drive up engagement?
Yes, I mean, number one, number two posts in the world are photographs of you or videos of you. So yes, without a shadow of a doubt, if you have a photograph of yourself basically doing something or with somebody else and tell a nice story about it, you will get a massive amount of views. Because again, people on LinkedIn are still human. They like to see other people. And so basically it is that, oh, there's a picture of someone enjoying themselves. Oh, that's interesting. 3 seconds and that's a view. It's basically there. Video is the same thing. Videos are actually much harder now. They used to have massive impact, but now everyone's having videos, obviously, because everyone does webinars and Zoom calls on a daily basis. There's like 100 times a day. So everyone's going on another video. So we're actually finding that unless your video is really, really original, then basically people are just, you know, going on to a post. So I'll give you an example. There, you might have seen this. The sales director, or I think it was the CEO, who got fired at 60 a couple of weeks ago, and he basically was on LinkedIn doing a video of himself in a suit doing push-ups. And I think basically he was in the UK, and he basically got 1.5 million views and about 200 job opportunities posted to him because he was proving he's making a point, he's making a stunt. But he identified the fact, if I dress as a suit and do push-ups and do a video, put it on LinkedIn, that's really original. I'm sure enough, 1.5 million views and lots of jobs as a result of it. So it depends a lot on the quality of your content, the quality of your videos, and basically how you want to share it. So the more personal it can be, the better. But a picture, literally a photograph of you, is the number one way of getting views on LinkedIn.
Interesting. Okay. I've seen a few things coming up recently on LinkedIn that are like slides, or they appear to be slides, just kind of like 3 or 4 or something like that. And they seem quite effective. Is there a tool that you'd recommend to do that kind of thing?
I mean, I think is that the PDF. If you look on LinkedIn, it basically allows you to upload a PDF, and obviously the PDF you can basically push it along and do it that way, or you can upload, I think Google Slides and do the same thing.
Got you. Okay, cool. Joao said you talk about time tips to pick the right time. So when's best to post?
Great question. So it basically depends on the time zones. Obviously, if you're in the UK, you want to pick the morning, and you want to pick between Monday to Thursday. That's normally the best time to do it. Fridays are not a very good day to post on LinkedIn because everyone basically is not in the right mindset to do that. And then I actually find Saturdays and Sundays to be particularly good if you have a particularly interesting, personal, and provocative one, because basically multinationals don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. So basically only entrepreneurs will actually then be thinking about posting on the weekend, but you still got 300 million people potentially looking at that feed because people are still looking through it. They're still browsing through the apps for content. So the audience is still there, but there's less content on a Saturday and Sunday, which means if your content is interesting on a Saturday and Sunday, you'll actually get a lot of views. So if you do it, say, Saturday morning or Sunday morning, you'd be surprised. Some of my best posts have been Saturday morning or Sunday morning, or even Sunday evening, for example, because people are then back onto LinkedIn thinking about the work day. But apart from that, if you aim it for the morning, the drive time morning, the lunchtime, the drive time evening, they tend to, even though people are not necessarily driving to work anymore or on a commute anymore, they're still in the line to kind of check out their LinkedIn in the morning, check out their LinkedIn the night before they maybe close off and go out or have some to dinner or whatever. So that's the key time to actually do it. But again, it's all about the content. You can have the best time to do it, but if your content's crap, then no one's going to engage. And that's why it's all about the content.
Just quickly, one thing that came up after the last one, it was around. Sorry, one thing that came up was around repeating content, and that was one of the questions. Can you repeat content? Like you talked a lot about, don't do a humble brag, speak confidently about things that you're proud of and achievements, and then it came up. Could you do that again and again, or does that run out? But interestingly enough, I had an accidental experiment this week or last week, in that I put a post up and it didn't have a picture. And so I tried to delete it, and then I put the exact same post up with a picture a few seconds later, and they both went out. They both had different people like them, different people engage with them in different ways. And I'm like, what's your thoughts on repeating content in generally?
There's two answers to that question. First of all, if you do a post without a picture, if you've got a crap phone, then you're more likely to see it because it obviously takes time to load. So basically, if it's just the words and has no pictures, people can basically browse through it and they may be more interested to actually see it. And you'll see a lot of clickbait people do that. So a lot of people who have, a couple of million followers will do one line. Bridget and Oleg and people like that will actually, Anthony in Australia, they're all over 1 million followers, but they do this kind of one line. I think they're really cool, but they get, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a way of clickbait. But the repeating thing is an interesting one. I repeat stuff all the time for a multitude of reasons. One, I might do a campaign. So before one of my books, for example, I might do a series of posts about the book with different creative, but the message is about the same thing. The book's coming out. This is what the book's about. And then it's basically leading people up. So you use it as a marketing campaign, but of course I'm not paying for the advertising. I'm just using organic posts to actually do that. And that works phenomenally well. But I also repeat content. So I might have a tip, for example, about what to do on LinkedIn, then share it again 3 months later. And I might use a different picture. I might use a different picture of me or a different picture of one of my books, for example, because the chance of someone actually seeing the content is remote. Because people only use LinkedIn for about 20 minutes a month, which is pretty staggering because they use Facebook for about 2 hours a day, or YouTube for about 2 hours a day, or the other platforms, the same thing, TikTok and so forth. But basically, if you think about if your post goes out, the people you want to influence may never ever see that post. So if you post it again, you're doubling the chance of the people you want to influence actually seeing that post and maybe engaging with it. I mean, I went out with a guy last night, for example, and I was talking to him. He's one of my close connections on LinkedIn. I just had a series of posts going to get 30, 40, 50,000 views. And I said, did you see those posts about X, Y, and Z? And he said, no, didn't see any of that. And literally, he had not seen any of my posts for the last week, which had all gone viral because they all got like tens of thousands of views. And yet he uses LinkedIn on a regular basis. And it just reminded me the fact that you can never take for granted all your connections, all your followers will see the content because they have to be viewing it at the time when you're posting it or one of their connections comments on it to see it. And if those two factors don't happen or someone comments on it and they're not on the platform when that happens, they won't see it. So do repeat it. It's not, people don't use LinkedIn like they use Facebook. They are not using it for hours a day. Believe me. So the more you post, the better.
Okay. Okay, so coming through to something that Costav said then, one of the most effective ways to use polls to increase engagement. Do you have any personal stories to share?
Don't use polls.
No?
There are several things that are dead on LinkedIn. Polls is one. LinkedIn Live is another one. If you ever see it, I mean, LinkedIn Live, you can rarely see it these days. But they launched LinkedIn Live, and that's where you can do this basically on LinkedIn. But the problem was that basically it started off, everyone's really popular. Everyone, 5 people had it, and they got 1,000 people on it. Then 1 million people had it, and they got 10 people on. And then people basically realized there was no engagement. There was a complete waste of their time. And then Zoom came along, and then basically webinars came along, and everyone had LinkedIn Live. It was just a different version of LinkedIn Live. So basically LinkedIn Live is dead. Polls, the same thing. When polls came along, everyone used them for a day, and I counted the days. I think it was the second day where there was a poll that said, "Are you sick of polls now?" And literally about 99% of people, yeah, fucking stop these polls. These polls are ridiculous. Please stop doing these polls. And sure enough, people just dwindled away. The polls doesn't, and you still say the odd one, which might get 100 views, 100 votes or whatever, but it doesn't work. It's like groups on LinkedIn. Groups on LinkedIn don't work. Company pages on LinkedIn don't work. So there are various things that don't work. Stick to the basics. The fundamentals is the feed works. A post in a feed works. So stop with the gimmicks. I mean, they just introduced stories as well because they're trying to be Instagram. And that also it was launched in Australia a couple of months ago. And my friends in Australia said everyone liked it for about a week. And then they got really bored of it and stopped using it because it was a gimmick. It doesn't last. People went back to just doing original posts. And that's the key. Just do original posts and you can't go wrong.
Okay, great. Just one more question then that's coming from Korstav, and then I'm going to go through just a few case studies that I wanted to run through, which was what do you think about scheduled content, i.e. using tools like Buffer?
We use that all the time. I use Buffer. Some of my clients use Hootsuite. So between the two, you have to do that because basically I'm posting now even though I'm in a meeting with you, or I'm posting in the middle of the night when I'm trying to influence America or the UK or a different country, for example. So it allows you to basically schedule your posts, and you can write posts which then will go out at different times. And I've got posts going out tomorrow, next week. I've got all the way to November using Buffer, and basically allows me as a foundation. So if I'm really busy and I haven't got time to create any content, that's already been created. It's already there for the next couple of months, and I can be spontaneous and put new posts in. I can change it around, alter it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Buffer.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I wanted to just run through a series of case studies that resemble 3 different people that have asked similar kind of questions, if you like. So the first person, someone that would like to become a CTO in, say, the next 6 to 12 months, not looking for a job right now, but wants to make sure that they're kind of picking their personal brand up a little bit for when that comes along. I know you talked initially about what a good CTO profile should look like, so this might be covered largely in what you said at the beginning. But is there anything that you would recommend there to do to start paving the way for when they come to get a job, they now look like the best?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing to do is you look at the visual impression. LinkedIn's a very visual medium. So the visual impression, the background picture, don't have that horrible, what they now have as a green kind of beige kind of background picture, which used to be blue. Don't have that, because immediately people he doesn't know how to use LinkedIn because he's got a background picture which doesn't represent his brand. Have something there about you. Have a saying. Have something you're passionate about. Have your company. Have you on stage. Have something there which is about you, because that's massive. That banner there is the first thing that people see. And then the second thing is your photograph. Have a professional photograph. Don't use a Facebook photograph. Don't use a wedding photograph. Don't use one of your baby photographs. Don't use your picture when you have a photograph with your arm over somebody that's been cut off. And it's just like, have a professional photograph. Take some time to invest in your personal brand. Have a professional photograph. Then have a good headline. Describe yourself in the headline. The headline, CTO that makes things happen, or something that really resonates. And then a good about section, which is very key. And then the about section leads to the featured section. So featured section now is where you can actually feature your website. You can do PDFs, you can do photographs, you can do YouTube, and you can also have the posts of the week. So I use it to have some of my biggest posts. So if a post goes viral, I'll put it into the featured section. So you've got to really use the featured section and edit it on a kind of daily or weekly basis. And then obviously fill the experience in and make sure it tells you what you do at the company and what the company does with some media. A lot of people basically say what they do at the company, but not what the company does. And then you're kind of clueless about what the company does, or vice versa. They say what the company does, but doesn't say what you do at the company. And then have recommendations. So have some recommendations. You know, if you're building up your personal brand, have other people say how great you are, because that's very powerful. You know, as soon as a headhunter comes along and they're looking at your profile going, oh, that's interesting. He's done that. He's got that. He's that experience. Oh, yeah. How many recommendations has he got? Oh, he's got 100 recommendations. Wow. And they're the CEO of this and the CTO of this and the CMO of that. Oh, you got employees and peers and partners. Oh, that's fantastic. So recommendations are really key. And then it's the thought leadership. They will look at your thought leadership and say, what does he think about this? How is he pushing the boundaries on, you know, thought leadership? What is his strong opinions there? You know, how is he breaking the barriers? Because that's all part of leadership. It's all part of being a CTO. So I'd say they're the fundamentals to look at. And obviously you've got to have a lot of connections. So have more than 1,000 connections. And they should be relevant and personalized connections. They should be people who are engaging with you, viewing your profile, engaging with your content, but build up the number of connections. Because obviously the more connections you have, the more people will then see your content, the more opportunity you have to actually market yourself, and the more that LinkedIn will start suggesting you to other people, and other people will be suggested to you. So that's basically the gamification of LinkedIn, is keep adding connections, personalized with a personalized message, of course. Don't just do connect, 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 personalize it. Say why you want to be connected to somebody. So I sent a message to all you today, for example, saying, hey, thanks very much for joining our networking event later. I'd like to connect. It's a personalized message. And so you're much more likely to accept a personalized message than a random kind of someone wants to connect with you for no particular reason.
Okay, great. And a lot of, as you say, fundamentals, good advice for general advice there, no matter what you're about to do and what you're going to step into. If you're then thinking about the next level on, so somebody that is currently out there, that's currently a CTO, but is looking to become more renowned in a particular area, say, for example, a specialist in a hiring-based CTO, or a CTO that really wants to be known in that, or culture. You know, we've got various different people that I'm in touch with that are going in these certain verticals. How do you go from being a good all-round person to a good specialist within these areas? What advice would you have there?
I think a lot of it's going to be down to content. So sharing things like videos, white papers, thoughts on different subjects, and become known for a certain area. You know, the same way that I get known for being, you know, talk about personal branding or LinkedIn or social selling, because I'm talking about it literally every single day. And I use hashtags around it and I get influence around it. So it's about owning a particular subject matter and then posting on it on a regular basis and using hashtags. So I use hashtag LinkedIn, or hashtag personal branding, or hashtag content marketing, which means if other people are following those hashtags, it will appear in their feed. So it's all about kind of finding the hashtags you want to basically influence people with, and use those hashtags in your content to be known, to be famous.
Okay. And if you cover a few different areas, is there a way to do that? So if you kind of if you wanted to be the hiring and the culture guy, you know, or something like that, would there be a way to do that? I know you talked before about a dual strategy. Does that work?
Totally. Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, we work with lots of people who are serial entrepreneurs, and they may have 5 investments, or they may be portfolio careers and have 5 different freelance jobs going on. So they're talking on the experience section about all the different things they're doing, and therefore their about section has to reflect that. They have to talk about why they're doing this investment, why they're doing that investment, why they're in this, why they believe in this, and then their content strategy has to follow that. So the 4-1-1 of content, which is basically 1 hard sell post about your company, 1 soft sell post about your industry, and 4 unrelated posts, which could be about, you know, a band you like, it could be about your passion, it could be about your country, it could be about leadership, it could be about something else, should reflect the areas you're into. So whether it's about recruitment or culture or sales or marketing or raising capital, and therefore your content is reflecting your personal brand, and then your profile is reflecting your personal brand, and so is your experience, and so is your biog. So it's all tying together as a holistic strategy around your personal brand.
But can you do that? So if you've got a personal brand, again, using this hiring and culture example, if you want to be both, it's easy if you're going to, like you said, like we said there when you said you've got to own the subject matter and be that person. You speak everything about hiring. But what about if you've got hiring and culture? Can you can you be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday hiring, Thursday, Friday culture, or something like how do you blend
I
the
would
two
mix it up
together?
more than that. I would mix it up more than that. That's where buffer can be quite useful. So maybe you do a post on culture one day, you do a culture on hiring the next day, and you mix it up and you say, well, I've got the balance right here. So I look at my post and I make sure I'm not doing too many about LinkedIn, and I combine it with non-LinkedIn stuff. And I do use buffer to make sure I'm basically measuring myself. And if I see I'm doing too many LinkedIn things, I take the LinkedIn stuff out and put it later in buffer, later in the week or the month, to basically eloquate. So you can quite easily do that. Say, what are my content pieces here about culture and hiring, and how do I get that right in terms of the content I'm actually sharing, so I'm known for both of those things.
Okay, and you mentioned there the 4-1-1 technique. I know you went
Yeah.
into this in a bit more detail last time. So this is 4 personal posts, 1 soft sell about the industry, 1 hard sell about your company.
Correct.
Hard sell about the company or whatever you're trying to hard sell, that's, I guess, easy and obvious.
Yeah.
Soft sell about the industry. What do you mean
So
by
for example, if I talk about LinkedIn, but I don't talk about black marketing, I'm talking about the industry. So basically, I'm saying, I'm giving you an update and say what LinkedIn are doing now. For example, I'm giving information about the industry I'm in, but I'm not talking about basically specifically, I'm trying to sell you black marketing.
Right.
And then the 4 unrelated posts shouldn't really be about the industry directly. It could be about something intangible like leadership or innovation or content, but it should be as different as humanly possible. I talk about a lot about entrepreneurs, and I call those posts my 4. Because I talk about entrepreneurs, and we help entrepreneurs, but I'm not selling my black marketing service as part of the main post. So it's basically giving value to people to allow me to permission to then have that hard sell post later on. So it's all about the mixing the content up to make it ultimately interesting for someone, so they don't unfollow you or hide your feed. Because if they hide your feed because you're doing too many hard sell posts, you've lost the opportunity to actually sell to them or to market to them or to get them to engage with your content.
So put that into context of the culture. The culture guy, the guy that wants to go into and be known as an independent consultant that is this culture expert. What are the 4? What are the 6 posts there?
So the 1 post will be obviously about his company, how he's improved culture at his company. The soft sell one could be about how he's improved or what culture in his industry, and then the 4 can be about him talking about different aspects of culture, but from a personal perspective. So, I worked at this company and the culture was terrible and I improved it by doing X, Y, and Z. So you're not talking directly about your company or your industry, but you're using something personal to come across. And then obviously something not about culture whatsoever, to give people a break from you talking about culture, because you obviously can't talk about culture the whole time, just like you can't talk about hiring the whole time. I can't talk about LinkedIn the whole time. It's got to basically giving some other value. So basically you pick something out. So I'll give you a good example. So the weekend, obviously, if everyone's a Liverpool fan or a Man United fan, there was these extraordinary results. I woke up, obviously I'm in Singapore, and the first thing I did was, I know that most Singaporeans are either Manchester United fans or Liverpool fans. I'm a Newcastle fan. So I had great delight in actually doing a kind of like, Singapore United 3, Tottenham Villa 13, and with the excuse that basically most people are basically, they follow the best team in the league in Singapore basically, and most people are Man United fans, Liverpool fans, and that got like 5,000 views. But obviously, and lots of comments of, Liverpool fans coming in, go, oh, that's terrible, and Aston Villa fans coming out of the woodwork and saying how marvelous they are, and all the rest of it. So basically, that was just a post about basically something, nothing to do with my business whatsoever, but I knew it would work because it was basically, there's a unique Sunday, unique event happening, and I know who I'm pitching to in terms of my followers. I know they're interested in football. And I got a few, Fox Sports presenters who I know to actually engage with it and share it as well. So suddenly the other people coming in from Fox Sports and the sports departments around the world, for example, they were coming in with the views and that kind of thing. And so basically you're then bringing industry people in from that industry with a view, but it's nothing to do with my business, but it's giving people an out and a kind of a way to actually express themselves on LinkedIn, and almost permission to basically, can I talk about football on LinkedIn? Oh, Chris has just talked about football on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm going to go talk about that. Go for it. And basically it's about your personal branding. You're passionate about football, therefore you share something about football.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, yeah, thank you. That really does help. One final part of this case study question then is, we're doing a lot of this work with aspiring speakers as well. So people that are looking to build that kind of side of their brand. So obviously speaking, I know you just said about LinkedIn Live is not maybe the way to go, but is there a way, let's say you are starting to get in, you're looking to get onto the conference circuit and you're starting to give presentations at user groups. Is there a way to blend things together with LinkedIn to and again, without trying to pull people away?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yes. I mean, first of all, you have to tell people you're a keynote speaker. So I come across a lot of keynote speakers who don't say they're a keynote speaker. And obviously the fundamental is, well, if you don't tell anyone you're a keynote speaker, then you're not going to be asked to do keynote speaking. So you have to put on your biog, on your experience section, even create your own company page, Barry Crawford, kind of speaking engagement, or Barry Cranford, keynote speaker as a company page, and list that as a keynote speaker on your company, on your experience section itself. And then put it in the headline, put keynote speaker in the headline, put it in the biog. I've done some keynote speaking for X, Y, and Z, and I'd love to come and help you do some, some engagement or some master classes around X, Y, and Z as well. Then do videos, of course, of you doing the keynote speaking, whether that's in real life or whether that's on Zoom or whether that's a webinar like this, for example. And then obviously record those, put them on a YouTube channel, which is obviously free, and then use that as a base to then share it on LinkedIn, and then get people to recommend you as a keynote speaker. So the best thing you can do is basically, after doing a talk, for example, is get the people you're then pitching to or presenting to actually recommend you. Say, oh yeah, Barry is fantastic. He gave this great keynote. It was very inspiring. And then you use that in your content to say, hey, it's not just me saying I'm doing a great job in the keynote speaking. Barry said, I do a great keynote speaking as well. Because people love to see other people, what they say about someone who's a keynote speaker as well. So again, it's part of our holistic strategy. And then do some posts on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm a keynote speaker. I just did this keynote speaking at X, Y, and Z company. It's me doing this picture of me doing it. Or do it before you're about to go on stage. Or do it a week before you actually go, or you're about to appear. And then people go, wow, I didn't know Barry was a keynote speaker, but he's just done this post about how you do a keynote speaker with IBM next week. And then obviously when you're at IBM next week, you do a picture of you at IBM doing keynote speaking. And if you can, when we went all locked down in offices, you could basically get someone to video you doing a keynote speaking with 1,000 people in front of you, and then basically share that on LinkedIn as well. So it's part of a, again, holistic strategy of you are a keynote speaker if you tell everyone you're a keynote speaker. And people think it's kind of mystical and magic, some kind of mystics around it and some magic, and it's not. If you basically fill in all the gaps and you tell people you're a keynote speaker, people will think you're a keynote speaker.
So interesting. And it sounds so brute force, but I know I was reading about what you've done with the authors, and you've taken people to best-selling books, and I mean, how many was it? Like, it's in the hundreds?
We've had over 500 clients become best-selling authors, guaranteed best-selling authors, and we then exploited on LinkedIn to show they're a best-selling author.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. I'm just going to finish then with just a few questions that we've had come in with those case studies. So Stelios, how do I get recommendations in my LinkedIn profile? I understand that getting these credits increase credibility.
So basically, you have to be connected to them, and then you have to ask. That's as simple as that. I know people think, oh, it's like it's kind of rocket science. It's not. Basically, if you don't ask, no one will give you a recommendation. So you literally have to come up with I will ask these 25 people with a little script saying, hey, it'd be great if you could recommend me. We had a great time at working at this company. Much appreciated. And then basically, you could even volunteer to write the recommendation for them, because basically people are lazy and they'll say they recommend you and they won't. So basically, if you prompt them and say, look, I've written it for you, all you got to do is copy and paste it into the recommendations, and you've got no excuse now. But if you ask 25 people, you might get 7 or 8 people who actually do it. So the more people you ask, the more recommendations you'll get. But if you don't ask, you won't get any. Okay.
And how valuable are paid for LinkedIn plans? As an individual, do these increase your reach?
The only paid for plans you should be using is Sales Navigator Team, which we use for all our clients, but then again, only for doing social selling. So that's a way to create target lists, to find out who's active on LinkedIn, because you find out who posted the last 30 days, which you don't find out on any other premium part of LinkedIn. And then you can use this thing called Smart Links, which is what I share when I share my services, so I can track who engages. So if you're doing social selling, you can do that. If you're not really doing social selling, and you don't want investors, and you don't want to basically employ people, you can just use the free LinkedIn, unless you want more than you get, I think it's 3 tabs of basically profiles you can see who are second connections. You won't see the third connections for free. And then you have to go onto the paid for plan. But unless you're really going to be using it on a daily basis and creating target lists and sending messages out, you don't really use Sales Navigator. But if you are doing that, you do need Sales Navigator. And it's Sales Navigator Team, not Sales Navigator Pro, because Team gives you smart links, which is the base of the document where you can track the engagement, and Pro does not. I know LinkedIn likes to complicate this. There are basically 3 premiums on LinkedIn. There's Recruiter, Recruiter Lite for those people doing recruiting. There's Basic Premium, which is crap, which is the normal one you get. And the Sales Navigator Pro and Sales Navigator Team. We have all our clients on Team.
Okay, fantastic.
And even that's misnamed. You don't need to be a team to have it. You can be an individual.
So what is the difference between pro and team?
So smart links.
Okay, got you. All right.
You get smart links on team, you don't get it on pro, but you can be an individual to sign up for team. I know, stupid name.
Okay. So the final question from Will Britton then, is it better to accept all incoming connection requests regardless of relevance, or be selective about who we connect with?
Be selective. Do never accept everybody, because if you accept everybody, basically two things happen. You can have a problem in terms of having all the wrong connections, so that's why nobody they engage with your content. If you get 1,000 requests from engineers in India who want a job in the UK, but they have like 5 connections, you will get no engagement on your LinkedIn post as a result of it. But if you accept 1,000 people who are CTOs around the world with 1,000 connections who know something about your industry, you'll get potentially people engaging with your content. So be very selective about who you say yes to. We even have a rejection script. So we switch our settings to say follow, which you can do yourselves. You don't need to be any rock star to do it. You can go to your settings, your visibility settings, and the follow section, you can switch your settings to follow. And that means when someone who's a second connection or third connection comes to you, they will see that on the button outside your profile, follow. And then they can just press it and follow and see your content, and save your connections to people who are basically, you want to see their connections and you want them to see your connections and have more engagement. You also have to teach the LinkedIn algorithm who you want to say yes to and who you want to say no to. Because if you say yes to everybody, LinkedIn will keep suggesting everyone to you. If you say no, they'll start suggesting certain people to you. So I basically tend to say yes to CEOs and founders around the world. So LinkedIn suggests CEOs and founders to me, and I get then suggested to other CEOs and founders. So basically it's all about the data LinkedIn is building up, saying, who does Barry want to be connected to? Does he want to be connected to lots of engineers in India, or does he want to be connected to CTOs in London? And if you basically say yes to CTOs in London, then basically you've got much more chance of being suggested that way. So have a very strict way of doing that. The other reason why you should never say yes to everybody is there is a limit. LinkedIn has a limit of 30,000. And now I know that sounds a lot, but I hit that like 5 years ago. And so every single day I have to delete people and add people, delete people and add people, depending on my priorities. So if I focus on, say, Australia, I might build up 5,000 connections there because I'm doing business down there. And if I stop doing that, I might want to basically delete them all and just focus on a different country, for example. And then you have to have the hassle of actually removing people and that side of things as well. So that's why you should be selective, because you will get to 30,000 quicker than you think if you have a very proactive strategy of basically connecting and engaging.
There you go. Question answered. Chris, thank you so much again for today. Really, really do appreciate it. Apologies to anyone that was upset, any Liverpool or United fans that were upset with that. But I'm sure everyone else really enjoyed it. No, it was really, really useful, really good. Thanks everyone for signing in as well. We'll drop you a YouTube link with the presentation. I would recommend everyone signs up to this with Chris. Obviously, Chris, we haven't really touched entirely on what your business does. Did you want to say a few words about the services that you can provide if anybody doesn't want to do any of this with LinkedIn and would rather get you involved?
Certainly. I mean, we basically provide the Rockstar service where we take over your profile. We save you all the hassle of having to do this on a daily basis. We optimize your profile. We rewrite your profile. We create a content marketing plan for you. We do content for you. You approve everything. We do a connection plan for you. Again, you approve everything. And we even do a social selling plan. So you want to win clients, we can do social selling for you using Sales Navigator. And we do all the hassle-free stuff for you, basically. So basically, you just can give us the okay. We'll do everything for you and make you a rock star on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll put all the details we can. We'll send something out, and yeah, we'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much.